Hello, I'm back to show you how I construct my Hexie Carryaround bag. So I've quilted up this one. So quilting just to the last one Hexie there, leaving this part open on either end so that we can join these together. I've ruled a line across the top of the hexagons and then stitched just 1/8 of an inch inside that line. So, and then I stitched in the ditch just across there. Quilted up however you like. Then across the top of your points on your line that you drew, or just across the points, just trim that up. Just using my rotary cutter and trimming all the way across on the bottom and on the top and on the bottom, and then on either end trimming around the shape of your hexagons. There, I've trimmed around the shape there, and on both ends we'll do that. So just trimming around the shape . Then what you need to do is bring your hexagons together on the ends here, line them up, and then stitch this together just with your little whip stitch, the same way you sewed your hexagons together to make it. Just be careful when you are whip stitching it that you're only taking a small piece of fabric, because you've no longer got any papers to give you that guide over the top. So stitch that up, and then your wadding, you're going to whip stitch that as well. So I'll show you that on this one that I've got going here. So that's my line where I've stitched up my hexagons and my lining. So you can either do a herringbone stitch or just a whip stitch to join it up. Once you've done that, then go back to your front and just quilt up the piece that was left undone so that you could sew up your hexagons. Then we need to quilt our base. So I've quilted up this base. Got another base here, quilt it up, and then we're going to trim that base to 10.5 by 6.5. So we'll just so that's 10.5 by 6.5. Then you need to round your corners. So I've got this circle that I used to do mine. It's 2.5 inches across the diameter there. So you can just, you could draw around it with your pencil and then cut it out with your scissors. Or if you're clever, some days I'm clever and some days I'm not, but you can just go around your hexagon with your rotary cutter. On all 4 corners. So that's that bit done. So then the next step is to mark your bag in the middle, wherever you want your handles to go, that's going to be your middle. And then your handles are going to go 1 3/4 either side of that middle line, and then this distance between them becomes 3.5 inches. Then I sewed my handles on from the bottom up 3 inches, across and back down. So on all 4 bits of that, that's for your handles. Then we're going to pin and quarter and 1/8 our bottom. I do my bottom, I also do my top, because when I go to put it in my the lining in, I can line up the lining on there as well, so that that will make it sit in there properly and not become skew whiff. So I've got this, so I've got it into 1/8 around here, and my base into 1/8 as well. I'll show you on this one the way I do that. Looks a bit funny sometimes doing this corner bit. So that's, it's in half, and then this way in half. And then to do this bit, so bring these two together and then smooth this bit around. Just keep smoothing it around so that you get it looking like that, and then your pin goes right on this corner here. So that when you're putting your base in, you're going to get it to go in evenly. So this is now my base. So whichever one's the front. So I'm going to put right sides together. That's the middle there. And then just swap over the pins. So you can see where I've got those that they're lining up to go around. This one around to here. You can see that that's going to fit in there nicely. Tangled up here. There we go. Lost a pin there, but I can see where the middle is from that one, and it all fits in nicely. And that's my base in. Not sure if this will turn in to show you how that's going to be without sewing it. I think it's going to work too well actually. No? Okay, so stitch around there. You'll get the gist from me doing it inside out. Stitch around and then turn it inside out. Once it's inside out, your lining will just sit in, and you can see what I mean, that if you then line up your top on this one, instead of the pins that I thought I might lose, I've just put a mark there with pencil so that then I can come and line those up with the pins at the top on my 1/8 marks. That just helps it to all sit in there nicely. Then once you've done that, you've just got to bind around the top. I might actually do another video to show you when I've sewn the base in, the lining, and then doing the binding. Might be easier. The handles, to make those, I've used the measurements I said. I think it's 1 1/8 and 2.5 inches. To turn those in, I've got a piece of pipe that come from the plumbing shop some years ago, and you can use a chopstick in the other end. So just push your pipe up to the top, and then I'm just using my purple thang here at the moment because that's what was close by, and I just push it into the top and push up. Usually I use I put it against my belly and push it through. Not quite as successful today, but there we go. So that's pulled the handle in. So by folding these bits into the middle, you then get your handle with having this bit here looking like it's a bit of a ridge, so that it looks like you've put tape over the top. And then my pieces of wadding that are 1 1/8, I just put a pin into them and thread it in. Just like you're threading a piece of elastic. So just thread your wadding up. Then once you've got it in there, just even out so that it's in the center. Give it a press, and then I stitch either side of that, and that gives it its ridgy bit. Then when I sewed it onto my bag, I just sewed just 1/8 of an inch from the edge there to stitch it on. You can see that there. If you don't have any turning tools, you can just use, and I'm going to have to thread that all the way through, you can just use a pin, and you can turn inside out with a pin as well. Just smooth all that through. Just takes a little bit of time, and you don't need to see me make that all nice and smooth on the video. You can do that, I'm sure. But just with your pin, if you put it into just 1/2 of your tube, and then bring the head of the pin up, you'll be able to turn it inside out. There we go. And then the tabs on the handle, I draw whatever the measurement I said was for the handle tabs, 3.5 by 5.5. So my piece of fabric is bigger than that, and I just draw my that's the piece of, so this is 1 1/4 by 4.5. is my little box that I've drawn there, 1 1/4 by 4.5. Then I use a 10-cent piece in Australia, so something equivalent, just to round my corners. So it's just a little tiny bit rounded there. Then I start stitching outside here like 3 stitches in and all the way around, and then 3 stitches back out. Then cut it out around just your 1/4 inch around. And then this bit where you left hanging out just makes it easier to fold. Your seam allowance will fold to the inside nicely for you, where you've sewn out to the outside edge. So you can see there that that just wants to fold in for you and make a nice turn in. Then your bits of Velcro, so one piece goes on one side and the other piece goes on the other side so that it can come round and join together. So you should be able to construct your bag from that. I'll come back and do another video once I've sewn in my base so that I can show you how I do the binding around the top. Happy stitching!